How'd you get the name Lumpy?
that goes way back. That goes back to high school. And it's no big deal. But when people ask me, I tell them it's from giving people their lumps. But that's not really true. After high school, I went to the School of Visual Arts in New York City and took up children's book illustration. And I didn't know of any tattoo shops at the time by me in New Jersey. I was like 5 miles over to George Washington Bridge. But one of the guys I became friends with at Visual Arts was from Babylon, Long Island. And he knew of S&W Tattooing on Sunrise Highway in Copiague, I think. No, Amityville. So I spent a weekend at his house. We both went and got our first tattoo at the same time. And still never dreamt of taking it up. But friends of mine were asking me to draw them up a dragon or whatever they wanted to get. And also at this time, in '65, I bought my first motorcycle, which I still have. It's been in magazines a couple times. A 52 Panhead. So before long, was hanging out with the motorcycle boys, and tattooing kind of went together with that. Those guys knew I was just starting to tattoo, but the price was right. I tattooed for a couple of years for nothing at parties, motorcycle clubhouses, bars, wherever. The name of the business at that time was road service. After art school, my parents, particularly my mother, still wanted me to go to college. So I got accepted to the University of Oklahoma for art. However, on the way to Oklahoma, I stopped in St. Louis, Missouri to visit a buddy from town who at the time was going to college in St. Louis. But he also was hooked up some guys that were just starting up a motorcycle club. So I never really made it to the University of Oklahoma. Thanksgiving weekend, went home. My parents still thought I was in Oklahoma going to college, but I had dropped out of college and joined a motorcycle club. So after Thanksgiving, I took my motorcycle out there, sent my parents a letter. I've dropped out of college and joined the motorcycle club. So that must have thrown them for a loop, but they got over it. And then I was tattooing at parties, clubhouses, like I said, and at this time I was still working a full-time job as a land surveyor. But before long, I was making more tattooing evenings and Saturdays than I was working all week. at the surveying job. So left that, started tattooing full time, and that was actually, started tattooing in '69, but that was actually like 70, 71, maybe 72. And been going strong since. Always did a lot of bikers. From getting started at clubhouses and parties, it was always a good time, you know. A few beers.
So what tattooers influenced you the most, and who did your first tattoos?
The night I got the equipment. That's another story. The original equipment was gotten from Captain Jack College, but I didn't have the money at the time. So a guy I was hanging out with bought the equipment, and we were going to be partners. So at these motorcycle affairs, I was going to do the outline and he was going to color them in, which we did. However, there was one party where he couldn't wait for the outline to be done, so he put the acetate stencil on people and colored in the tattoo with the charcoal outline from the acetate stencil, and then expected the line work and the stencil to line up. So that was the end of that relationship. That didn't work out. So I bought the equipment out from him, and just started doing it on my own. You know, like I said, those guys, they knew I was just starting, so they didn't expect the best, but the price was right, free. Nowadays, when people ask me how to start, I tell them pick up roadkills and shave them.
So Captain Jack College was your first tattoo?
Was who we bought the equipment from. The other guy got a tattoo from Jack that day. I never got a tattoo from him.
Oh, okay. So who did your first tattoo?
Excuse me?
Who did your first tattoo then?
One of the Moskowitz brothers, either Stan or Wolf. This guy that I was going to art school with was from Babylon, Long Island, and I spent a weekend at his house, and we both went and got our first tattoo.
Oh, okay. You probably already said it. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't say that.
So what other famous tattooers have you been tattooed by, and who do you look up to?
Okay. I didn't know about Stan Dennis in Bloomingdale at that time, but he tattooed me early. I've been tattooed by Ed Hardy, Bob Roberts, Zeke Owen, Sailor Barney. Lately, the boys at Skin City in New Windsor, New York. Let me see, Stan Dennis. Well, Barney, the first tattoo I got from Barney, he was with the carnival. I got tattooed at a carnival he was tattooed at in Spring Valley, New York. Oh, I know who else. Bob Shore, I got a tattoo at a convention from. And Colonel Todd. Colonel Todd was the colorer there. They had a two-man operation.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the funniest story about Barney is that story about his ex Shelley. When Sailor Barney then settled in Rockland County and opened a tattoo shop on Route 59. So one day, a buddy of mine and I rode up there on our on our choppers, low slung, rigid frame bikes. So we go and sail Barney there, and Shelley, Barney's old lady, who was a very hefty woman, she came out and saw the motorcycles and take me for a ride. But I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't really want her on the back of my bike. She probably weighed 400 pounds. But I said, okay. But it worked out because she was so heavy, she couldn't swing her leg over the bike to get on it. I was very relieved of that situation. So that didn't happen. She was, when we walked into the shop, she was sitting in the couch in the waiting area with a pound metal can of hard candy, just shoveling it in. It was awesome. And then one time when Sailor Barney came to my tattoo shop in Bergenfield, New Jersey, I asked how Shelley was. Oh, we broke up. So I related the story I just said to him. He says, you think that's funny? One time we went to Florida and went out on Friend's boat, and it was a hot day. We all jumped in the water to go swimming. And when it came time to get back on the boat, Shelley couldn't get her legs under her enough to climb up the ladder back onto the boat. So they towed her back to the marina with a rope, and then had to use the boat lift to get her up on land, which was pretty hysterical. We all got a big laugh out of that day.
So you said you had your own shop, and when was your first shop established, and how did that all work out?
Well, the first one was a basement shop in Bergenfield, New Jersey, and I was there for several years. And then I moved to a storefront shop in Bergenfield, New Jersey, and I was there for several years too. But not being aware, Bergenfield passed a tattoo ordinance that I knew nothing about. All of a sudden it was presented to me. I couldn't be open past 6 o'clock at night. That was probably the worst thing. How to wear a hairnet. If I was tattooing a chick, I had to have a female attendant on duty. Couldn't tattoo Sundays or holidays. All kinds of bullshit. Now that happened. That happened in November of, I've got the articles, let's see, that happened in November like of 80. But the previous September, 2 months before September, my father passed away. Now, he and my mother had bought a house up in the country on a lake. It was a gorgeous spot. So, after they passed that, I decided, my mother announced, I'm not moving up to the country by myself, I'm going to sell the place. I says, well, I'll buy it. I always like going up there, you know, on the lake, more freedom. So I bought it from her. But in the long run, and moved up there, in the long run, that was a mistake. There's so few people up there compared to Bergen County. So I had the basement shop up there, but it was slow. Nobody knew me up there yet at that time. So I opened up another storefront shop in Port Jervis, New York, and did okay there. But then I got robbed there. They broke into my store, stole a lot of stuff. So I moved back to the basement in the house, and that's where I've been since, when would that have been? Since the mid-80s, like 84. And that's where I've been, except for, you know, a few guest appearances here and there. Skin City and New Windsor, New York. A great bunch of guys. Down here with Kerry. When I started, I got, one of the earliest catalogs I got was Zeiss Studios. And in their catalog, just like Spalding, they had little pictures of the flash, the designs. So I would sit looking at the little pictures and enlarge them to tattoo size. That's how I started drawing flash. Plus, you know, always clipped out cool designs from magazines, newspapers, whatever, and would work them into tattoo designs. And Spalding, how did I start with designs for Spalding? Spalding wanted more flash for his catalog. This was in the 70s. So we agreed I would do, I think it was 56 sheets for his catalog. So I did them and Huck put them in. But I've always done my own flash. But, you know, over the years I got other people's flash too. But basically, I always worked off of my own stuff. In fact, a book of them is going to be coming out soon. Went to that very first tattoo convention there ever was in Houston, Texas in, that would have been 76, which opened my eyes to met a lot of people. We left Big Joe's and came to me for a while. That was in the mid-70s. I was doing up the pages of flash for Spalding, and I had to fill a page, I think it was, or 2 pages, I think it was 56 sheets. Well, anyway, the deadline was coming because his new catalog was going to production. So Louis Lumpy did 3 sheets for me so I'd make the deadline. So Louis Lumpy, one of the sheets was a tractor trailer, a head-on view of a tractor trailer, every 3/4 front. And in the license plate of the tractor trailer, Louis Lumpy put LL. So Louis showed me that. I said, bullshit, that stands for Lumpy Larson. Okay, so this would have been 79. I heard Ed Hardy was going to be at Ernie's Guideline Tattoo down in Toms River, New Jersey. So I made an appointment to get a tattoo. So I go there, and who was also there but Paul Rogers, and he's got machines for sale. So I bought 2 at that time. In fact, I'm tattooing you with one of them right now. But as I mentioned, I was still smoking weed at that time. So on the way home, I had just gotten a tattoo, bought some Paul Rogers tattoo machine. I was feeling good. So I'm going across that long bridge on the Garden State Parkway, and a terrific lightning storm is going on. I was tripping to the point where I thought lightning was going to hit me and I wouldn't need a transformer. I could just hold the tattoo machine and it would run. Which I always get a kick out of. Yeah, tattooing's the best job you can have. It's so much fun.
My thing with tattooing started when I was really young, when I was a kid. I was completely fixated on it. If I saw a tattoo, I just would never stop staring. Nobody in my family or my household, extended family, had tattoos, but anytime in the outside world, if I saw a tattoo, I'd probably get lost and start to wander and follow. And one of the most impactful tattoos I remember seeing when I was very, very young was a young lady had her face tattooed like a butterfly. It was up in Cape Cod, in Provincetown, Cape Cod. It was probably like 1970. And I saw this woman, and her whole face was tattooed, and it wasn't face paint. You could tell it was a tattoo because the way the line work was, you know, it was not a pretty tattoo, and that just blew my mind. From that point on, you know, if I could see that movie, The Illustrated Man, Papillon, anything with tattooing, I'd be like all about that. So I started drawing things that I thought looked like tattoos. And I'm sure I was really nowhere in the neighborhood at the time. But I used like the Alice Cooper album cover, you know, School's Out with that heart and the dagger. Things like that would catch my eye. So I guess in 3rd grade, I did an art contest, and my silly little tattoo design that said tattoo won first place or something. And the prize was a paintbrush. And I remember I was bent out of shape because 3rd prize was colored pencils, and I wanted to color pencils, so like a little douchebag, I pouted because I didn't get the prize I wanted. And then, you know, I always was looking at them. All the kids in the neighborhood started getting tattooed by Lumpy. So this is in the 1970s over in the Norwood, the Bergen County area. So late 70s going into the early 80s, all my friends had Lumpy's work. So that was my idea of what tattooing looked like. Then I started getting tattooed. I rode my bicycle to a kitchen. I believe it was either 1979 or 1980. I always say 1979, but it could have been 80. And I got tattooed by somebody that Lumpy tattooed by the name of Jumbo.
That's your car.
So I got my first tattoo in the kitchen in Northvale by riding my bicycle. So that was my start. And then once I had that tattoo, I went up to Sailor Barney's old shop. I rode my moped up to Route 59 in Spring Valley, New York, from Norwood, New Jersey, to get tattooed there. And he said, "Do you have an ID?" And I said, "No, but I was thinking of having you add to this tattoo I had." So he was just kind of like, "Oh, okay." So that was enough of an ID for him. So I got a chest piece from Ivan Bernardi, who Carl knows. He calls him Chris the German. And he's got a story that, you know, I'll let Carl tell you, that apparently he escaped East Germany. So they called him Chris the German. And I guess that's a whole nother story, but I won't tell it because I don't want to tell it wrong. So moving forward a bit, I got tattooed there, and then I got some work from Howard Baum up in Nyack, New York, who Lumpy had also tattooed. And I got a couple of really good tattoos from him. I still got like this Pinky Gum design that hasn't been touched since he did it, and that's like 1982. I got a bunch of work from him, and then I found Shotzi somehow, some way, and I started getting tattooed by him, and he did a bunch of really cool work on me. And then I started traveling around. I was going down to Glen Burnie, Maryland to get tattooed by Tom Beasley. I was flying up to Calgary, Alberta to get tattooed by Paul Jeffries. I got tattooed by Dana Brunson at a convention in Knoxville, Tennessee. Did a dragonfly on my knee. And, you know, I'm sort of blanking on some of the other stuff, but I got a lot of work over time. And then I started tattooing. I'm a licensed optician, so I was doing that. I was running a kid's eyeglass store. So I was dealing with all like little kids, and Shotzi and I were communicating quite a bit back and forth. And basically he offered me the opportunity to apprentice, so I jumped at it. So I started my apprenticeship sometime in the mid-90s, and you know, did a real traditional old school apprenticeship. Kind of earned it the way I think it's supposed to be earned. And then I worked for Shotzi or Shotzi's on and off for about 20 years. And then I worked a few other places. I worked for Jay Connor at Electric Lotus. I worked with Randy Prowse at Permanent Buzz. I had, like, of course, the illegal private studio set up in my basement, and then I had a really cool studio out of my garage. Like, I finished the garage, and it's still there. Like, my little studio is still there. And then, you know, I was at Shotzi's on and off. I was shown the door kind of one time. It was kind of mutual. It was one of those things that I was had some stuff going on with one of my kids health-wise, and I needed to get health insurance, so it just didn't quite work out. The arrangement couldn't be sort of made that I could work there and it worked for everybody. But then I went back and I worked there for like another 10 years, and then Katie, my wife, and I decided to open the studio here in our town. I walk to work every day, got a great commute, and I got all my stuff around here. I love my old flash, I love my old stuff, and I've sort of made a giant kind of man cave into a tattoo shop, and I get to come play here every day. So that's my groovy story in a short nutshell. Now, one of the coolest people that I met, and it was probably like I wasn't even aware enough to realize what a great opportunity was. I was at a convention in Florida. It's a really long time ago. I don't know exactly what year. And Paul Rogers kind of sat down next to me because everybody was always really excited to be around him. And I think sometimes he would enjoy a little peace and quiet. So he kind of sat down next to me and just said, my doctor told me I'm only supposed to drink 1 Coca-Cola a day, but today I'm going to drink 2. And he just kind of nodded and sat down and drank his Coca-Cola, and that's all he wanted. He didn't want anything more. He just wanted to sort of sit there and enjoy his soda, and I think not talk about tattoo machines for just a few minutes. I think I may be assuming something there, but I think he needed a little bit of a break, maybe. And he was just really a nice, soft-spoken guy, of course. But the early conventions, I got to, meet all the real characters. One-Eyed Jack Armstrong gave me a wooden nickel, which is always, I still have. I love that wooden nickel. But, some of the guys that I even met, like, way back in the day, I remember meeting Lenny Dwayne, who was a tattoo artist and an inventor in New Jersey. He invented, a rotary tattoo machine that I do believe became the Spalding Revolution. That perhaps it's questionable who came first, if you know what I mean. So, sometimes I lose track of all the cool guys I met back in the day because there's so many, and I didn't know enough at times to sort of savor the moment. I mean, I remember Sugar Bear from Emporium Design in Colorado. He would talk to me, and he was just the coolest guy in the world. And he did all those great crafts. Like I got one of his belt buckles from the '80s, but he had back then he had the coolest booth going because he had all the great, little tchotchkes that you don't see anymore at the conventions. It's I just miss the days. There was just a lot of cool things to see and look at. And I remember seeing Mike Malone at the conventions, and again, sort of missing the opportunity. Sometimes he would just be sitting there, and if I knew now, well, if I knew then what I knew now, I would have been chewing his ear off, asking him a million questions. I would have been buying all his flash, too. It is so crazy that the old-timers now were the guys that I initially hung out with. So I get a kick out of that, it was just the guys at the conventions. I remember Philadelphia Eddie at all the conventions early on, and just always being really friendly. And then he started doing his own shows when there was something that kind of went sideways, I guess, between National and him. So it was never dull, but it wasn't it wasn't like the shows that you see now with like paint-proof rubber girls and loud music and all that kind of stuff. That it was just different. I remember you couldn't even get into a tattoo convention or a show early on if you had like any face or neck tattoos. You just weren't allowed in.
That's awesome.
I know, and now it's like if you don't have a face or a neck tattoo, they think that you're part of the wait staff or something like that.
How did you meet Carl Bernal?
That's another story. Carl lived in Bergenfield, New Jersey also. And he started tattooing. I think it was, I don't know whether it was his apartment or his parents' apartment in Bergenfield. But that first tattoo shop I had in the basement, I guess Carl thought I had a license to tattoo. So he went to the town and told the town that he wanted a license to tattoo, just like George Larson on 12 Tyson Place has. But the town didn't know I was there, so soon after they stopped in to see what was going on, and that caused me some problems. I tried to deal with him like with them. One day, I get a call from a councilman. He tells me his son, who's a minor, is coming down for a tattoo. Doesn't want him to be tattooed. No way, no how. He says he's going to have permission slip from his mother, but his mother and I are split up. I don't want him tattooed. I says, okay. So, did him a favor. The kid came in. I made up some bullshit story, maybe minors because he was a minor, that I couldn't tattoo him. Well, let's see. And then it was that councilman that had these rules passed on me, so he fucked me over when I did him a solid, you know what I mean? One day, I was tattooing one night actually at the Bronx Aliens Motorcycle Club in the Bronx, New York. So I ran out of something. I don't recall what, but I mentioned, oh, I'm going up to Spalding up by Albany to get whatever supplies I needed at the time. Oh well, we'll take a ride up with you. Well, before you know it, there were 3 couples going up there with a case of beer. So, you know, driving around looking for Voorheesville, finally found it. The guy driving the van, I said, there it is. The guy driving around cuts the wheel and does a power slide across Huck's lawn, rips up the lawn. So, go in, do business with Huck. He didn't see anything. He didn't see that at all. He was in the shop. So we're leaving, and Spalding comes out. Oh no, Spalding's wife comes out and tells Huck what happened. So Huck then got pissed, and he wanted $20 for grass seed. Well, being with the boys, I wasn't giving Huck $20 for grass seed. So Huck wouldn't sell me supplies for quite a while. I had to order them under my wife's name. But I eventually sent him the $20 for grass seed, and everything was fine again. He was more interested in the biker chicks than care about what was going on, really. But Huck was a good guy. Bob Roberts, I first met, was it that first convention in Houston, or the next year it was in Reno, Nevada. I think it was in the one in Reno, Nevada. He was there. I first met him. He was passed out in the hall of the hotel. So we got to drink it again, you know, a little later. And then he came to New York City for a while. This was in the 80s. And I went down to his shop. I forget where it was, but I got a couple from him. And then he got robbed while he was in that shop and moved back to California. When my wife and I went to California in, when was that? Maybe 15 or more years ago. I found his shop and got another one from him. A good guy all the way around. Yeah, like the old Grateful Dead song, what a long strange trip it's been. But very cool. Wouldn't have it any other way.